Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session. Welcome from what is quite a grey and overcast Oxford today. Good afternoon, good evening, I think, for most of you joining us on the call today. Really grateful for you taking the time to join us for today's session. While people are still joining, as I can see people are filtering through, I will just briefly introduce myself. So I think from a few of the names I can see coming through, I've been in touch with a few people for sure. So great to see you again. My name's Joe Nicholson. I'm a recruitment manager in the Executive MBA team. I'm responsible for recruitment for candidates specifically based in the UK and then also East and Southeast Asia. Today, I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues who you'll see on the panel, Alejandra and Johnny, who'll be helping with the slides and monitoring the Q&A. So yeah. Just to highlight from the top, the session today is recorded, so we'll send out a recording in the coming days following the session if anybody wants to kind of recap or revisit the session. We would also love this to be an interactive session. It's really designed for the attendees to have a chance with our panel of alumni who've kindly given up their time to put questions to them, to learn about their experience and to hear about how they manage the programme whilst based across different parts of Asia. So have a think now. We'll move on to the Q&A in a few minutes or so. Before doing that, what I'm going to do though is just provide a bit of an introduction and just give some context and background about the programme for those of you who might be in the earlier stages of your research about the programme and still exploring the Executive MBA at Oxford. So we'll just provide some more context about the programme now. So the Oxford Executive MBA, we have two intakes of the programme each year, one starting in January and one in September. The January intake is 22 months, the September intake is 24 months. And within that time frame, you would study 16 to 18 week-long modules. The structure of the programme is made up so that within that time, you would have 15 core subjects that you study in the first part of the programme. And that includes two group-based modules, one of which is our entrepreneurship project, and then also a module called Global Opportunities and Threats Oxford. And those are projects that you're involved in small groups across the programme. Then in the second year, you really have the option to tailor the programme and choose elective subjects that are of interest to you. So you can do that in year two. Within each programme, there's usually around 60 to 70 students in each intake. And I'll give a bit more context and detail about what the class composition typically looks like. But in practice, what this would mean, what it would mean is that within the time you're studying this programme, you would have a module approximately every 5 to 6 weeks. We have a real focus on in-person teaching so that you get lots of time here in Oxford, in the academic environment at the school and across different parts of the university. You also get time with the faculty and obviously importantly with the other students that you're studying with, who I will tell you more about shortly. Although most of the sessions take place here in Oxford and they're a week long, there are international elements that run through the programme, which is on the previous slide, some of the kind of locations where the modules are taught. Thanks. You can go to the next slide now, actually. Thanks, Alejandra. Just to go a little bit deeper in terms of the composition and diversity of our most recent intake of the Executive MBA, which was in January, that had 60 students. And as you can see, diverse in many different ways from 37 different nationalities, 30 employment sectors, and an average of 15 years experience, which is fairly typical across the programme. So just giving you a bit of a snapshot and a bit more detail there. If we can go to the next slide, please. So again, one of the keywords that comes up if you speak to alumni or any of our team that work on the programme is diversity and the international element of the programme. So this, again, with the January cohort we just had, gives you an overview of where the students were based. So as you can see, representation from lots of different parts of the world. So most people are travelling to Oxford predominantly to attend these sessions. So you get a really broad range of perspectives. And the whole programme has a really international and diverse flavour to it. Next slide, please. Again, on the notes of diversity in terms of industry sectors, just giving a snapshot view here. as I mentioned, typically it might be around 30 or so different sectors, from ones you would expect, like financial services, tech, energy, but through to people at the other end of the kind of scale who are working in non-profits, NGOs, working for governments, government agencies sometimes. So you'll get a lot of different perspectives, and for sure we'll get to meet and network with a lot of people that I'm sure you'll never have had the chance to kind of have exposure to. Next slide, please. So hopefully that's just provided a little bit of context at the start of the session. But what I'm really keen to do now is to get cracking and spend time on the main part of today's session, which is with our panel. So welcome to the panel. Thank you all so much for taking the time to share your experience with us during today's session. So as you can see here, we have a couple of current students who are still midway through their experience on the Executive MBA. So they'll be able to share some of the experience they've had so far and challenges they've faced from kind of managing studies and managing everything from their area. And then we also have a couple of alumni as well who have recently graduated, and Lani was feeling nostalgic, I think, just before we started the call, hearing about Cynthia and her current experience on the program. So we'll have a chance to hear from everybody. And as I say, please do think of questions you'd like to ask the panel. To kick off with, though, it would be great just to start with a few introductions, if you don't mind, telling us a bit about what you're doing at the moment, and obviously what where you're based in your region. That would be fantastic. And for ease, should we just start with the kind of order that we have on the panel? So, Rashad, if I could come to you first, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, that'd be fantastic.
Hi everyone. I'm Rashad. I am a J23 student, so that means I joined in January of 2023 for the EMBA program. I joined the program after actually selling my practice in wealth advisory based in India, and currently I am working in impact advisory remotely with a firm called Innovest Advisory.
Perfect. Thanks, Rashad. Lani, if I could come to you next.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Lani Tao. I'm based in Hong Kong. When I started my EMBA journey, I was working with a different company and in a different industry. So I did a complete pivot. Currently, now I am with Caring, leading inclusion and diversity for Asia Pacific.
And Victor, if you don't mind going.
Yes. Oh, hi, everyone. Victor from Singapore. You see the title there. That's with the NGO or the non-governmental organization that I volunteer at. So I'm with the Governing Council with the China ASEAN Business Alliance. I also chair the United Nations Global Compact. But what pays my bill? I'm into investment banking. So I'm with Stout, which is based in Chicago. And at the same time, we do merger and acquisitions as well as capital raising. And at the same time, we had a venture funds that we invest in startups. Yeah.
Nice. Thanks, Victor. And last but by no means least, Cynthia, would you mind saying a few words?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Cynthia. I'm now based in Shanghai. I was in Hong Kong. I was in Hong Kong for nearly 8 years, but I relocated to Shanghai 4 years ago. So I'm now general manager for Marlboro in North Asia. And I actually specialized in luxury and fashion industry. So if anyone actually is around me, like in Shanghai or Beijing, you want to have like a coffee chat, I'm more than welcome to do. I will leave my contact to Oxford administration team. So you might actually add me, not even just for WhatsApp, but also WeChat. Yeah, I think that'll be more convenient.
Nice. Thank you very much, Cynthia. That's very kind. Brilliant. So I've got a few questions prepared, which we can start with. But as I say to people on the call, please do have a think and submit questions in the Q&A that you'd like to ask the panel related to their studies, their experience, how they manage travel, any insights you'd like to try and gain from people on the program. I'll put a general question out there to start with, and we might not have time for everybody to answer each question, but feel free to jump in if you'd like to answer it to start with. But it would be great to hear initially kind of from somebody about what motivated you to study at Oxford to start with. What made you kind of decide to jump in and actually join the program? Would anybody like to kick us off?
I could go.
Yeah, that'd be
Uh,
great. Thanks, Rashad.
So actually, the person who inspired me to join the program is actually on this call, Alejandro on the Zoom. If you asked me in July or August of 2022 whether I would be considering an MBA or an executive MBA, I would have said that's not even anywhere on my radar. I was fortunate in August or September, I had visited Oxford for executive programs around impact finance. And at the time, I was a lot of the students in those programs actually told me that I would be a perfect fit for the EMBA, and I actually interacted with a couple of the EMBAs then. And Oxford is such a wonderful place. It's from a international in terms of diversity of student profiles, you get people from all over the world. And the academic rigor that is present in the program is quite amazing. So actually that tempted me quite a bit. And once I spoke to Alejandra, I was sold on the program. In fact, I actually didn't only apply to Oxford, I didn't apply anywhere else because I really wanted to go just to Oxford.
Nice. Well, way to go, Alejandra. Round of applause for you. Cynthia, you've got your hand raised. Please go ahead.
For me, the same. Oxford was my only choice. And I want to take some very concrete examples why I chose Oxford. So I started to have this idea, like I really want to explore for academic work because I know like the world is changing and we somehow actually kind of restrained in the mindset because we actually work day and night, but within the industry, we want to know what outside industry is looking like, especially, after the pandemic outbreak. So I was actually participating in several schools open class. So there are two schools. One is INSEAD and one is SAPES. Actually, they actually have the headquarters in Shanghai. And I found out they're not really, possibly it's just my case, not what I want to do. I want to have a cohort really, really diversified. That means that for language, culture, whatever, the things you're doing, the mindset you're carrying, the conversations we're going to encountering, but sometimes it can be challenging, but it will be very fruitful for us to learn from each other. And I actually learned it for the past few months, 6 months that I think despite what we will be getting, the very fruitful, decent experience from Oxford, I think your cohort will be one of the very important factors that push you forward. And for that, I think Oxford is somewhere that really, really competitive from this angle.
Victor, please go ahead. Thank you, Cynthia. That's really great insight. Victor, please.
Oh yes, and likewise, I had also just applied only to Oxford, and I guess when two is coincidence, three must be definitive that Oxford is the choice. And why had I applied to Amber? I was in the financial sector and very much investment banking, but I had a lot of passion about in the charity space, in social enterprises, and very much when 2021, I think that's the time when the whole world were facing disruption. Businesses were disrupted by fintech, crypto, blockchain. At the same time, we had COVID. And very much I was looking for a university or institution that could actually look into resolving world's problem. And here it is. And I saw there's the tagline of Said Business School, resolving complex issues in the current world. And I guess that's very much quite different from the other Amber or MBAs of other schools around. I've seen others who are very financially focused. Some others are very much about the skills and techniques of solving financial issues. But in here, I saw Oxford had differentiated themselves very much about looking at what are the current problems that we face. And in this case, I guess very much we saw there is a differentiating module within Oxford, something called GOTO, GOTO. Very much it actually uses and world issues. For instance, at my time, they were resolving cases like in Bangladesh where there were flood. And how do we resolve flood that were ongoing for 4 decades or 5 decades and where financing are actually short of. So there are ample of issues that we actually address as a collective discussion. And also the other part I noticed is within the Amber itself, we had about individuals coming from 40 over countries and across about 30 sectors or industries. That gives enough diversity, that gives a multifaceted perspective of a problem. And so very much that gives a rigorous discussion where many of us actually not only just learn from the faculty, but also learning from each other, from the students as well.
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, I think that's a great point. That diversity and different perspectives is something that continually comes up if you ask, students about the experience of alumni, kind of what was valuable. Lani, did you want to add anything then at all?
Yeah, I can add. And I don't know if you had picked this panel purposely, because I was also one of the ones who only applied for Oxford. I didn't apply for any other schools. So I think in the beginning of my journey, I've been wanting to do an MBA for many, many years. Like, it was always on kind of this bucket list. And I think COVID was maybe one of those drivers, like, okay, we have nothing else to do right now. I'll look at studying properly now. And I reached out to, and I think the online site, to have a conversation with Helen, who is now the director of the program, and to just get an insight for what it was like. And I think when I talked to her, to kind of know the diversity side, like everyone else has mentioned, was very big. But for me, I had actually ranked all these kind of schools. I had made a list, an Excel file, different schools around the world. So it was in the US, in Europe, in Asia as well. And Oxford was also on there. I think what attracted me to it was also how the program is structured. So I had a big family consideration. So I have kids at home. I have my partner. I work in Hong Kong. I have a network already in Asia, I felt like. And so some schools, if I was going to be in Asia, I think it reduces and limits that network. So Oxford, one, check the box of having that global network. Two, with families, and I don't know, with the 15 years experience, usually there's a lot of family consideration. So is it to uproot the entire family to go somewhere for a 2-year program? That was a big consideration. So having this be part-time, having this be flexible for that 1-week period instead of every evening kind of weekend, felt like I could go to this program. I could be really engaged for that 1 week and just really focus on my studies. And it was also something for myself. It didn't have to do with school. It didn't have to do with family or anything else. That really allowed that flexibility for me to do this program. And I think with the focus on social impact and what everyone else has talked about as well, the Oxford program really focused on purpose. So the people that you meet, I think we have different backgrounds, a lot in the NGO space, nonprofit, and that just elevates the conversations that we have in the classroom as well.
Yeah, perfect. Completely agree. Thanks for sharing that, Lani. We've had a question come in, and it's a good one because it's one I had on my list to ask. So it's really around kind of the more like practical logistical side of managing your time on the program. It's how challenging is it to balance work and studies along with travel and, I suppose personal life, everything that comes with the package. Would anybody like to share their thoughts on that question at all? Cynthia, I can see there you go. Please go ahead.
I want to answer this question first because I can tell some of the attendee are actually probably Chinese or Asian, whatever. So I actually got frequently asked about this question, like the travel will actually take a lot of time. It's very time consuming. I learned from my cohort as well, like time management is a skill. It's a hard skill and a soft skill. Why I'm saying that is because starting from the first module, you will see people actually walk out of the classroom, taking calls, participating in meetings. You just need some respect to the professor. You let them know what the situation is, but you're free to walk out. All the sessions are recorded. So you're allowed to go back to the sessions to check the details that you missed. So that is the first thing. The second is, once you actually squeeze yourself to fit into that 10-hour study into the day, your mind actually functions quite differently. You are very, very focused. We're normally actually back to the mode of play hard, work harder. So we arrange our life quite, intensively to fit into that schedule, but your work won't be affected. That's what I'm gonna say, because my entire cohort actually encounters the same question. I think my suggestion is, don't worry too much. Because I think what you have to do for your cohort is like you really have to get the ball roll over, but you really have to plan your agenda on the day very seriously. And you have to know like what you have to prioritize on a daily basis. And you also need, why I mentioned that is the soft skill is you have to communicate with your organization clearly why you're doing this course and what you will be sacrificing, but what at the same time you are contributing to your own team. And the time that you missed for your team, how you're going to compensate that when you're coming back to the organization. So that's my answer.
Very good advice. Thanks, Cynthia. No, great to hear your thoughts. Victor, please go ahead.
Well, yes, in terms of time commitment, I think that's really an issue that if every month you have to fly there for 5 days for lecture, and so across some 12 months, probably about 11 months, because normally we had a month as a vacation. So 11 multiplied by 5, you will probably need about 55 leaves if you're working to actually go there. And hence, I think commitment is important. And Oxford actually does get most of the applicants to actually notify the employers so that you can actually have the your leaves application to reach there. Nonetheless, I think while flying there, I noticed, I think most people, while they're there, the lectures are conducted 9 to 5. And Cynthia is right. I see many people actually goes out, still have their Zoom with their office, making phone calls, and probably there's an assurance to the employers that, look, I'm away, but I'm still doing my work nonetheless. But across the day itself, I'll promise you that it's actually anything except boring. Noon time, you see within the cohort of classmates who comes in, and some of them were forging deals, some of them were sharing projects or over their work as well. And at the same time, by 5 or 6 p.m., while their assignments or maybe there's some work to do, usually I find most of our cohort will stretch the evening for dinners, and even down to for drinks and pubs and clubs, and we even within our cohort has something called a 5 a.m. club, and which means all the students stayed until 5 a.m. in the morning. And the next thing now, we went back to study at 9 a.m. again. So the whole 5 days actually is a lot of excitement. And you can actually go to like from the Oxford Society to the various campuses, libraries, etc. So the whole 5 days are exciting. And I guess it's worth going to campus. But once you're ongoing on the second and third week, third month, you will see that for every module that you attended, there is usually assignment that need to be handled up in the month after. So I guess that's the part that you within the month if you're flying and you probably are due for the assignment itself. You probably have to spend time on both. And at times there are electives to be done. And that means that actually within the same month, you might have been doing one core module and also one electives. So which means that you might be flying on 2 weeks and yet struggling with another 2 assignments at the same time. But nonetheless, everyone pulled through and with a lot of fun as well.
That's interesting to hear, Victor. I wasn't aware of the 5 a.m. club. You're obviously a member, but you managed to graduate. So, well done. I'm sure. Sure, it was good
The
fun.
5 a.m. club, we had almost scores of members. I think probably about 20 over to 30. I think we should extend
Wow.
to some of the new applicants here as well.
Yeah, wow, that's impressive. Exclusive membership. Rashad, would you like to go next? Thank you.
I maybe just add to what Victor was saying. I mean, even in our cohort, we definitely have a 5 a.m. club. There are, a couple of runners who go exploring every day in the module. Some of them come, from LA, and they're on a very different time zone, and yet manage to pack everything in. What I will add to what's already been said is, while you're in the module itself, it's very intense, both academically, but also, you don't want to lose out time to meet your cohort, your classmates, to network with peers. There are often many other events going on that are organized by the program as well. So you don't want to skip out on any of those. So you do tend to take up not just your 9 to 5, it becomes 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 12 p.m. or whatever, or 2 a.m. or whatever it is. Of course, as time goes on, those kind of things, you adjust yourself to that, and you do what is most important, or what you can manage. But then also, as the program progresses, you suddenly, like I'm right now realizing that I will only have maybe 2 or 3 times where I'll see all the cohort together. And everyone else is split up into different sections where they have their own electives. So, you do want to dedicate that time. But I also want to say to Victor's other point, do prepare for a lot of work outside of the modules itself. I think when I applied for the program, I had a understanding that it would maybe be 10 or 20 hours of prep per week for this, but my experience has been almost 20 to 30 hours per week, given the amount of readings you need to do as pre-work for the modules, and then as soon as your module ends, you have 6 weeks before an assignment is due. Sometimes those are individual assignments, sometimes those are group assignments, sometimes they're in one case it's an exam. So that's a lot of work to prepare for. So even the time outside, you need to prepare a lot better, is what I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Rashad. That makes sense. Lani, please go ahead. Yeah, great to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So I think I had a very interesting experience for my program, because once I got accepted, a couple of months later, I actually found out I was pregnant. So I spent almost like the 9 months of the first part of the program being pregnant, and then the second half of the program breastfeeding and trying to haul milk and trying to juggle that on top of like the work and the program. So I do want to say it is doable. Not ideal to get pregnant at the same time, but there actually are other women who have done it as well. So I think it was part-time management. Like from Hong Kong to the UK, we have a direct flight that 10, 12 hours, and then you have another bus. So all of those moments, like once you're on the plane, once you're at the airport, like doing the readings, doing the assignments, however else to juggle time. But I think it was such an amazing 2-year program that I wanted to, even though I was pregnant having all of this, I wanted to make the most out of it, because how many times in your life are you going to be able to have this opportunity? Undergrad is a very different experience. With the EMBA program, it's with people who have all decided and chosen to be there at this specific time, to give up time outside of their family, outside of work, to all come together. And it's only for 2 years. It sounds like a lot, and it sounds like a lot of modules when you're in the thick of it. So that's why I'm really jealous of those that are still in the program at the moment. But you do try to make the most of it. So those 5 a.m. clubs or the get-togethers, or it's spending every lunchtime to make plans with someone, to really get to know your classmates on a deeper level, to spend dinners together as well, and to on the weekends, people traveling together. And I think I saw my classmates for those 2 years more than I saw some of my family members and some of my friends in Hong Kong. Let's put it that way. So you really do start to get to know everyone really well, and you build those relationships and bonds in a very unique way. So I think I'm really thankful for the program for that.
Yeah, that's great, Lani. And it always seems like there's such a sense of camaraderie in each cohort. Every cohort has a slightly different vibe and personality, but it brings people together, doesn't it? And makes people bond in kind of a way that you wouldn't normally. So that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. We've had a couple of questions come in just around. One is actually around colleges. Meta has asked, could you share a bit about your experiences with colleges, and have they added any value to your Oxford experience? I guess you might have all been at different colleges, or maybe some the same. And I think it's fair to say it varies to the extent that people are able to make the most of the college and kind of leverage that network. But it would be great to hear some thoughts on how you use that and explore the college, if any of you did so. Would anybody like to jump in around that? Cynthia?
I can share
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Thank you.
I'll be the first to share. So 2 things. The first one is, if someone really needs accommodation, I think Keble College will be your first priority. Keble College is a Greek college, and because Saeed has a very special relationship with Keble College, so that means the higher chances for you to get in. So Keble College actually offers very decent accommodation. I think the rate is £65 per night, so it's very decent. And you can enjoy the breakfast at your college, which is another very amazing experience. But another part of it is my case. I want to explore something new. So I am now in Lady Margaret Hall. So the same college of Emma Watson, if someone really interested to know which college it is. Our college doesn't actually offer accommodation for part-time students. But I actually committed to that, so there's nothing to complain. I think that more about for those of you who get a chance, who might actually get a chance to visit Oxford, my recommendation will be you actually can visit Oxford during weekends to get a taste like which college you might be really fell in love with. Otherwise, I think you can check online to see like what kind of activities that college is offering. For me, the painting, the music, like all my really interests and activities I'm gonna do at the college really trigger me to choose the Imari Hall. So that's it.
Nice. That's great, Cynthia. Yeah, I think your point about Keble is a good one. Usually there's a decent number of executive MBA students, so you have kind of your own small community, and accommodation is more available there. You might not get a celebrity that's resident there. Emma Watson is a pretty special one, so that's good. You have to keep an eye out for her on campus. Rashad, I can see you've got your hand up. Did you want to share?
Yeah, so I am part of Wolfson College, which is actually pretty far away from SBS. So it's quite a shame that I have not been able to engage as much as I would have liked to with the colleges. I think it's I would say that you get as much out of the experience, or as much in terms of your engagement with the college as you put into it. And given that the EMBA programs, you come in on a Sunday and you leave on the following Friday or Saturday, and with a packed schedule, it's difficult to engage with the college unless you're living there. I will say that when there are many of students in my class who do engage with the college and participate, and even invite fellow EMBA students to take formal balls, or the punting or other events and activities. My main interaction through the colleges maybe that are not Wolfson are through the formal dinners. Every module, the SBS team puts in a lot of effort to host one formal dinner, and every time it's at a different college. These are really special dinners because they're with your classmates, with your professors, in a more formal environment, in the history and beauty that defines Oxford University. And actually it gets quite personal because as part of the tradition, many every formal dinner you will have a student or two who will stand up and give a speech about a subject that they're passionate about. And you may even have the program team or professors also speak prior to the dinner, or prior to that student speaking. Oftentimes these are very personal conversations, and or something that show a very new perspective on life, or even about the person who's speaking. I find those to be some of the most special memories I've had in my SBS experience, in terms of and I mean, that's how I've experienced the colleges through Oxford, and it's something that I find really great.
Yeah, thanks, Rashad. That's a really special part of the experience in each module, isn't it? Getting to have a dinner at a college, and to the point that lots of you were making before, getting to know people outside of the lecture theatre as well on a more personal level. That's a great kind of chance to do that while you experience, obviously, the history and heritage of Oxford. So glad you mentioned that. Victor, please, would you like to add something?
Oh yes, I think in terms of choices of the colleges, there are, I think, firstly, you might have a college, but nonetheless, you may not stay in the hostel. And for me, I've never stayed in any one of the hostel before. So I was at Keble College, and that's a large college. There are smaller college like Oriel, and there are also the newer one like Green Templeton, and of course there are some which are older, have been there like Christchurch, and even Balliol, etc. Right? And so in your choice, I guess when you choose, it's really up to you whether you want the more modernized or the more traditional ones. There are certain tradition to observe. The traditional ones, basically to go to even the dining hall, you have to wear your subfus, which means it's a ceremony gown. So there is a price to pay if you need to access to some of these dining facilities. Whereas the more modern one, they have no issues. You can actually go in your casual wears and everything. So that's something to think about. And for where to stay at, I think I'm offering the other options. I've seen my classmates staying at BH Allen. There was a P-ball. Some of them staying in Green Templeton. Some of them were able to access even Christchurch. There are ways to actually access that, even though you are not a member. Um, for the non hostel options, there are a lot out there. The private one, and some of these are really modernized. They have share clubs, rooms, billiard room, ballrooms, and even pubs and clubs as well. And I guess it ranges from £50 all the way up to 100, £200 as well. So it really depends on the options. And I noticed that almost 80% of my cohort stays outside of the accommodation. I think likely because you have to actually book somewhat reserved it months ahead. And secondly, I think some of them like the liberty and freedom of staying in a private hostels or in the hotels as well. Yeah. But anyway, there's no lack of options for all.
That's very true, Victor. Yeah, I think going back to it, Keble is a very good option for people who want that college accommodation as an option. But yeah, there's other stuff available, of course. Lani, did you want to add anything about your experience with your college?
Sure, yeah, because mine was actually Oriel College that I had. So it is one of the older ones. The location is great. But actually, when I was applying for the program, I applied very late. I was on the last weekend of close of application. So by the time, and also I wasn't part of the British UK system or anything, so I didn't know about the colleges. So I had gotten accepted, and I thought I was going to get the letter from Oxford Said, and then I suddenly had Oriel message me to say that I had a place, and I thought it was a scam. So I didn't even know about the college system. So essentially, it was chosen and given to me. There was no choice and option. So if you are going to apply, maybe apply early so you can choose. And the other considerations, which I'm slowly again learning throughout my experience, was that you're a lifetime member of this college as well. So I still get the emails and the alumni events from Oriel. So if that's something really important to you and how you want to engage with the college later on, maybe that's part and to factor that into your decision. As well, certain colleges, there's just limited space. Maybe there was only 1 or 2 people that are accepted as well. Also, how rich a college is, how much endowment that they had. There's differences in, what kind of events that they host. And then again, the accommodation side of it. And I would say that there's also for the events, I think that's also a really big one. If you want to be part of the sports teams, there's certain colleges like Oriel is actually really known for rowing. So if that's something you want to be involved with, look in the different college websites too.
Yeah, very good point. Thanks, Lani. As we don't have any questions that have come in at the moment, I'll ask one. You touched on it before, I think all of you, around the kind of network that you get from the program, the experience of learning with the students that you're studying with. How would you say the program has helped you kind of expand your global network? And what's that like kind of in the classroom setting when you're actually going through a module? And how does that help you get that kind of global perspective and facilitate the learning, would you say? Rashad, you were in there straight away, please go ahead.
Yeah, I've studied in international programs before in the UK and US, but I've never seen a diverse cohort as much as I have in Oxford. We have people from Ukraine who are sitting next to people from Russia. I'm Indian. I sit next to a couple of Pakistanis. We have people from Uzbekistan, Nigeria, all over the world, from places, it's not a Europe and US centric program. It's very diverse. That's just within your cohort. We have a lot of networking that happens between other EMBA classes as well, the other batches, as well as previous years of the EMBA and the current MBA students. So, you end up expanding your network massively, and there's nowhere you can go where you won't have access to, people who are at leadership levels in pretty much any country in the world. It's quite amazing that way. And also, I think the international modules specifically help you to interact. Like, I went to Vietnam in December. We had the CFO of Uniqlo come down. We met very senior people in Standard Chartered, Unilever, in across, within that module itself. but then also, they send you to, you can choose to go to the US. You can, and the program is also piloting micro exchange programs. I myself have applied to do one in Brazil later this year. And then there's the GNAM as well, which many students don't know. I didn't know about when I joined, where you get to apply to the global network of advanced management studies, where you can exchange and go for a week to there are some of the top universities across the world. So I'm definitely hoping to apply to go to Mexico and maybe Korea the next 2 years for that. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity to be able to expand your network.
Thanks, Rashad, and thanks, Alejandra, for sharing. I think a link to that in the chat for anybody that's interested further. Lani, I think you had your hand first. Do you want to go?
I wanted to add, like, the GNAM was a fantastic program, and it was something the first year I missed out on. So the second year I made sure to be a part of. So I ended up going to Berkeley for the DEI course. And again, this was something that helped me with my pivot and switch into this DEI space. And actually in the whole beginning of this program, how I pitched it to my employer was also because of this network, because of the connections that you make, that it was actually valuable for the company to allow me to do this program, to give me the time off, to give me the flexibility, remote work and such. And even now I find that, the connections that we made with the professors as well, they're a source of network, they're a source of inspiration to bring them for talks, to have the other classmates and alumni to be part of the discussions that you have within your organizations as well. So I think definitely try to do as many of these programs. The micro exchange, I had the opportunity to do the first pilot one to Yale. So we got dropped, kind of dropped into the Yale EMBA program and kind of experience what is Yale EMBA like, and have a week of that. And there's just so many different opportunities that are kind of sometimes just an email. So you have to really, really check your emails as well. Otherwise you miss out on the deadlines.
Yeah, you do get a lot of emails. But the GNAM opportunity is a great one. You're right. Glad you mentioned that, Rashad, and Lani, obviously expanding on that. Victor, I know you had your hand up. Did you want to add anything to that at all?
Oh yeah, that's precisely what Lani highlighted. GNAM is actually an acronym for Global Network of Advanced Management, and that ranges from Yale, Berkeley, British Columbia, to even Fudan University in China, and even Singapore as well. So the module is actually free. So within the network of universities, we could actually choose during the vacation time to attend any one of this. So those are great network courses to go to broaden that. Second part I want to highlight is, I guess with the cohort of just within our alumni itself, we realize that now by flying to any country during our during our business trip, it's almost any city, there's always an alumni that can call on. So that's a great network and access that whenever we needed help, be it local government, local businesses network, there's always someone there that we can call on, and they're able to extend that. And the third part of this is within the cohort that we have, and I understand that within every batches as well, most of the students came out setting up business ventures amongst them. So within my cohort, we had a group of them who came out and set up a fund to help Africa and to look into infrastructure, venture capital startups. And that fund was set up with almost 20 of my cohort students within that group. Second, but we have seen at least 3 companies are being spun off. One of them actually become a Techstar incubator, and they were looking at using big data with off satellites, and with that they were able to apply and help to resolve some world issues from global forest fire down to even anti-piracy in the open sea. So this network is way beyond just academic itself, but also I think to view the EMBA class as also a platform where ventures, business, partnership can be forged as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Victor. We probably see that kind of more and more now. Like you say, people going off into ventures, working together, becoming business partners with other people in the cohort. So yeah, it opens a lot of opportunities for people. We've had an interesting question come in from Tomomi. I'm going to take this one. It's a good question. Could you tell me what the most exciting class or course or module was that you took on the program? Were there any kind of standout ones to anybody? Would you say? I can see a few smiles, so I'm guessing that's a yes. Cynthia, would you like to go first on that one?
So far for me, and I think our entire cohort will agree, for me, it's strategy. It's because for us, we always actually get involved into the strategy discussions at the boardroom, and we always have the question in our mind, like what should be the best strategy. So you are gonna learn a lot, and I think that's one thing really highlights the Oxford experience. The professor, they actually owns very distant experience. They actually works in industry, so they're bringing this hands-on experiences, but they actually share with you from academic and also practical perspective. It's very practical for me. What I learned actually from the class actually cultivated my 5-year strategy for the brand. So that's how practical it is. So definitely that's my answer.
Yeah, very good answer. That makes a lot of sense, Cynthia. Has anybody got any? Does anybody agree with that, or have modules they enjoyed a different amount? Victor, I think your hand shot up first.
Yes, I'm torn between GoTo, which is a GOTO that actually looks into solving complex current issues, and we had actually within the social enterprise trying to resolve from developing country and looking at climate change and various issues. But that's being one, and the other one actually I'm quite impressed with was the elective with the emerging market, and that we actually went to Sao Paulo. And within Sao Paulo, Brazil itself, the 5-day course were able to bring us into the favelas, and the favelas is actually slums. If you know, within Sao Paulo or Brazil, it's actually one of the largest Gini coefficient diversity, which means the wealth gap and the lower echelons is huge gap. And we were brought into the favela that most of the time, I think being a normal visitors, you can't access to. So even within the slums itself, the police could not station itself there. And at the same time, for those in the slums, if they were to order e-commerce or even for food delivery, it cannot be delivered there because it's the slums. And within there, likely it's actually being ruled by the gangsters or even the underground. We were brought there and we actually were quite impressed with how they have solved their issues in there because the e-commerce cannot do a last mile delivery. So very much the favela by themselves decided to gather their own people, and they said since the outsider would not deliver, they would do the last mile. And while it is dangerous for the outsider, it's actually a business opportunity for themselves. And secondly, because banks does not operate within the favela. So within there, they actually run their own banks and they actually provide their own loans. In there, they actually note that because they understand who are the ones who are hardworking and who are the ones who are entrepreneurial. So with that, they're able to actually know this individual has a lesser credit risk, and they would provide them so that they can do like microfinancing, and they're able to actually start off their business and spin off. And within here, I think we're quite impressed that since I think they are entrepreneurs and they give them skills, they run schools as well. At the end, they are even doing their own stock exchange or public listing just within the favela for their own companies. That by itself is a great example on how society issues can be resolved by a very unconventional way within the slums. Individuals who actually resolve issues in a non-academic way. It's away from the textbook and something that we rarely see how this were being resolved. And that's a great module to look at. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Victor, and that actually answered another question that we had from Luna coming around the GoTo module. So thank you for touching on that. Rashad, would you like to add your perspective?
Yeah, I would definitely second what Cynthia and Victor said. Strategy with Tim Galpin is an extremely practical course. Tim Galpin has literally written the book on strategies and on mergers and acquisitions. So that's a really great course. BEM, I did Vietnam. It was absolutely incredible. you are able to go there and you have a picture of a country from outside, but then when you actually go there, you get a lot more context, just from the little things like the dinners or the networkings on the side, which gives you a lot more context on what is going on and really what's happening. I think beyond that, I've not finished the course, so I am really looking forward to a couple of programs. But in terms of the ones that I've already done over the last 1.5 or so years, I really enjoyed the technology and operations module because, again, that was extremely practical. Kind of gave you a guidebook on how to, go about operations management. The other one that I really like was corporate turnarounds. That was a big surprise for me, how to turn around a failing company. And we have really, really incredible professors. In terms of what I'm looking forward most to over the next 6 months or so, I'm very, very excited about the South Africa module and the Silicon Valley module. I think those are key reasons why I applied, and I've heard great things. So I'm kind of looking forward to those.
Nice. That's great, Rashad. And I think those modules won't disappoint. We'll have an amazing time. Very jealous. Lani, please go ahead.
So I would say my favorite was probably the business ethics class. So we have a portion of it in the very beginning. So it's like setting the foundation of you as a leader, thinking about the ethical side. And it's also how you would maybe imagine Oxford. It's like really going really deep in some of the philosophical discussions. But at the very end, I really liked how they close off the entire kind of program to kind of really think, what kind of leader are you going to be? And giving us these deep, provoking, just what kind of person do you want to be? What is the purpose in life and all of this? And I know it was a little bit mixed within our cohort. Some people really loved it. Some people really found it uncomfortable, but I think it really challenged you to think differently as well. And actually some of the electives at Oxford were one of my favorites too. So South Africa Inclusive Business, that's one that I really enjoyed because it was going to Cape Town and having those experiences organized by the school as well as some classmates to take you around and to really be part of that culture and be able to learn. And also I want to shout out for the inclusion and diversity course, because this was the professor, Renee Adams, that was just absolutely fantastic. The research that she is doing right now is cutting edge research. If you're interested in this space, interested in gender equity, I highly recommend it. And the nice thing is you can do courses that are the elective, as you have to choose certain electives, but you can actually add on as well. If you're really interested, you can do above and beyond the required electives and to be able to have still have that Oxford experience.
Yeah, thanks, Lani. Those are all excellent points. I think we've covered off those. We're running out of time a little bit. Just very quickly, just wanted to put it to someone out there in terms of kind of career transitions. Is that something you either maybe experienced personally or saw any of your kind of colleagues and other students experience while they were on the program, or Lani and Victor in your case maybe shortly afterwards? Was that something that that you kind of saw while you were on the program, would you say? Would anybody like to say a few words on that at all? Lani?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Great.
I actually transitioned partway through the program. So it was, I think in the last 6 months, I switched organizations. And I think it did actually have to do, I think when you do the EMBA, there is a period, someone told me there's a period where this EMBA, you want to take advantage of that while you're on the program or just finishing the program to do those switches. And a lot of people, when you ask the cohort, why are you doing it? Pivot is actually one of them, whether that's getting to a more senior position, a different role, or going to different industries. So it's your chance to kind of talk to other alumni, other classmates, to talk to the professors as well. And I think for our cohort, there was a big number that actually did do pivots. Also some that actually just decided to take time off completely and to just really focus on this program for a year or for 2 years. And then also to live on Oxford, to be on campus and to have that experience.
Yeah, the other part to note is it's almost without fail every month that we went there. There's always a career coach who come by, and there's a career team who will always be probably briefing about interviews and also about the various employers that are coming to campus and looking for students to actually to be recruited. So in here, there'll be ample of chance, and you can have free access to also the career coach who will vet through your resume. And some of my classmates, I noticed they have changed jobs times within the 2 years of studies. So I guess the career coach has been helpful, and also the access to some of this consulting that came on board. We've seen from Accenture, Ernst & Young, Big Five to come by, and we've seen the McKinsey, Bain who come by as well. We also seen the investment banking firm who came by and actually gave us briefing. So I guess some of them were recruited and some of them joined them as well. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks so much for adding that, Victor. Rashad, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going through a transition currently. When I applied for the program, I had sort of exited my previous venture, which was on financial, within financial services, and I was a volunteer in terms of social impact on the side. So I was looking for ways to kind of merge those two together. The program gave me the breathing space to be able to do that, and that's what I'm currently doing with my fellowship. We're kind of through the more than halfway point in the J23 batch, and I do not know any of my classmates who have not transitioned or thought about pivoting, or are and are actively pursuing that. So I think definitely the EMBA is a very opportune moment for people to do that, and many do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real platform for change, isn't it? Whatever form that might come in. I'm very conscious of time. Thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts and your insights about the program. Can we go to the next slide, Alejandra, please? For those of you on the call that are still kind of in the process of thinking about the program, these are the application requirements. So as the next step, I would suggest getting in touch with me or your respective recruitment manager, and we can discuss these points in a bit more detail. This is all available on our website as well. Next slide, please, Alejandra. We have a number of scholarship opportunities available. Again, details available on our website, and we're happy to discuss these with you in more detail. But these are the current awards that we have available. There are some still remaining for the September 2024 intake and January 25. So please do get in touch to discuss. Next slide, please. These are the deadlines for the September intake. So as you can see, a couple of these have passed already. The next one is coming up rapidly on Monday. So hopefully we'll see lots of you apply by then. But following that, we do have 2 further deadlines going into May and July. So those are dates to have in mind. Next slide, please. The first 3 dates are the same for January, and then obviously we'll be recruiting until later in the year. And throughout the process, we do operate the scholarship allocation on a rolling basis now. So it's definitely a reason it's worth applying earlier in the process. Firstly, to do with the kind of scholarship awarding for the program, but also college places as well. Next slide, please. So the only further thing to say is firstly, thank you so much to all the panelists. Lani, Victor, Cynthia, Rashad, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share your experience. It's been invaluable. And thank you to everybody for joining the session. I hope it's been useful. Please do get in touch if we're not already speaking about the program. And we hope to see you in Oxford in the near future.